Hello and welcome to Lightline. My name is Ari. Today we will be discussing the topic of how to be happy. This question was posed to me by a friend of mine, and I really had to think about it because I'm someone who struggles with treatment resistant depression. So it really took a lot of introspection for me to be able to figure out what I'd want to tell other people. Full disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. This is just me speaking as a person with depression. What's worked for me, what hasn't. So let's talk about it. I'm coming from this from the perspective of an autistic person. So my advice might be more relevant to autistic people. I mean, allistic people, non autistic people, take what I say and use what works, ignore what doesn't. Um, yeah. So, the biggest thing that I've found to cope with depression is to go back to what made me happy as a child. And for me, um, that's pursuing my special interests. My first ever special interest was Pokemon. I was obsessed with Pokemon for a very long time. And that was long before I discovered I was autistic. It's amazing no one ever really pointed it out. But going back to what made you happy as a child and what you were drawn to, um, if you can't think of anything that makes you happy, really, then that would be a sign that you need to reach out to your doctor and be like, hey, something's wrong. You know, if you're autistic and your special interests just aren't doing it for you anymore. um, Re exploring what I'm passionate about has really helped me. Podcasting has helped me by giving me something to focus on. If you don't know what special interests are, um, they're kind of like obsessions. They're things that autistic people are very passionate about and often very knowledgeable on. So, the closest thing I could compare it to would be that of an obsession. But I've always found special interest to be a positive force in my life. Granted, my special interests have gotten me in trouble sometimes, but overall, it makes me very happy when I'm doing research on them, when I'm focused on them, when I'm engaged in building community around my special interests. So really, the allistic equivalent of that would just be like finding a strong hobby that something that you can be passionate about. I wanted to make sure I wasn't saying just like your typical advice of like take your meds, go to therapy. Everyone knows that. um it is worth saying that there are therapists out there that do sliding scale. Um based on income or based on what you can afford. So if you think it's inaccessible to you based on cost, it might be worth calling around and just doing some research because it might be more accessible than you think. Um, I mean, everyone knows that journaling is good, journaling is helpful, meditation is good and helpful. Those are all things that have been discussed a lot and they've helped me. Um, I found a journaling app. It's not free, but I've found it to be worth the money. It's called Honestly. This is not a paid sponsorship. This is just what I'm doing to journal. But honestly, a notebook and pencil would be just as effective. I like the app because it gives you prompts. So you can kind of reflect on your day and follow the prompts. And it does use AI, but I find it's very helpful. It's hard when you have depression because depression really takes away the will to do everything that you need to do. Because I can sit here and say, like, oh, you need to journal, you need to take your meds and go to therapy, shower, eat right. But, like, when you're depressed, that's not. You have to be really selective of what you do. And you have to make sacrifices if you only have the energy to say, if you have to choose between, am I going to shower today or am I going to eat something? I would definitely recommend meds for depression. I've found that my ADHD meds actually help my depression a lot more than the antidepressants do. But that's just me personally because I had pretty bad executive dysfunction where like I was struggling to do things. So being able to treat that helped my depression in turn. So definitely work with your provider and look at the big picture of like what other mental health conditions are affecting what you do have. Reach out to support groups. That's a big one for me. I'm big into peer support. Trying to think of like what other advice I could give that's not something that you would typically hear. The biggest one would be go back to what you used to love when you weren't depressed. And if you have to force it a little bit, sometimes that's just the push that you need. And you might find yourself remembering why you used to love it. Reach out for support if you need help. 988 is the crisis line that I use. There's also the Trevor Project for LGBT people. There's a ton of resources out there, a ton of community. You just have to be willing to be honest with people about where you're at. So I guess I don't really have any further advice than that. I'm open to questions about it. And like I said, this is not medical advice. This is just me as a person with depression saying, hey, this is what's worked for me. um, yeah, reach out to stofferari@gmail.com if you want to get a hold of me. We have a Discord support group. I'm also affiliated with the HAMS Harm Reduction support group. So the resources are out there. Don't give up. Hang in there.